Yo, what's popping? Welcome back to by my boy Billy C. What's popping, Billy?
Hey,
So we're here today because ESPN are back on their bullshit, basically with this MVP straw poll. Now, Billy, you put me onto this, so I'm going to kind of just throw the rap to you and let you run with it. All I'm going to start this with is they have Jayson Tatum fourth in MVP voting right now. That's number four. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 3 slots too low. Billy, how you feeling with this, man?
well, this is organized by Tim Bontemps, notorious Celtics hater. He's famous for voting Jimmy Butler Eastern Conference Finals MVP when we beat them. So Tatum wasn't unanimous. But it is actually a good indication of where the voters are leaning, what they're thinking. It is anonymous, so like we don't know who voted what, but we do see the votes and they are broken down. It affects betting lines, it affects its groupthink. These voters, they look at this and then they all start thinking the same things. It's actually kind of horrible. Zach Lowe and Bill Simmons used to talk about this. Like it gives an idea where people are leaning, and then people will bring more people to their side based on that. So unfortunately, as bad as this is, it's very important and it's something we have to address. Obviously, Jokic is far away ahead because the MVP is turned into a statistical award. Wins and losses don't matter. It doesn't matter if you lost to the Wizards. Doesn't matter you lost to the Blazers last night.
It's the problem is it's a popularity contest, and it's the same with all NBA individual awards. A lot of it comes down to who is the sexy name at that moment in time, right? And shockingly, considering you see a lot of vitriol about the amount of European talent dominating the league right now, European talent tends to dominate the MVP conversation. If you look at the top five, 3 of the top 5 are European, 1 is Canadian, 1 is American, Tatum being the only American in that top 5. Now, my issue doesn't come with who this player is, where they're from. My issue comes with I am very much MVP should be most valuable player. I don't care about your supporting cast. I don't care about where your team is within the league standings to an extent of if you're third in the West, I'm not going to dock you points because you're not first. And now, if you're dead last, then you'll win the MVP voting. No, that's not going to work. To me, if you look at Jokic, if you look at Giannis, those two predominantly in that conversation because they're previous winners more than what they're doing right now. Don't get me wrong, Jokic is playing at a different level. If you want him at number 1, I'm cool with it. He's been ridiculous this season. Giannis, on the other hand, only really started showing up about a week ago, 2 weeks ago. And to have him third, so just to run this through, Nikola Jokic is first. He's got 57 first votes, 27 third, 18 third, and second fourth. So that's where the voters, there's 100 voters, they're either voting him to be number 1 in MVP voting, 2, 3, 4. Shai is second, 24 first votes. Giannis is third with 19 first votes. Tatum is fourth with 0. That is 0. His jersey number worth of first votes. And that tells me people aren't watching enough Celtics games.
It's so frustrating because they act like we have this super team, yet when he's not on the court, it becomes a disaster. Like our on-off, I mean, it's for his whole career. Our on-off when Tatum's on the court, we are this super team that's unbeatable, all those great things that people say about us. But when he comes off, it's not that. It's not that at all. And having good teammates isn't a tax on MVP. Every MVP had good teammates. Bird won 3 MVPs in a row with 4 Hall of Famers on his team. There is no correlation. You shouldn't be deducted because you have a good team. Honestly, it's a standard because you should be a top 4 seed at the worst because we don't want our MVP losing in the first round. We want a team that's going to contend because the MVP is really the narrative of the season. It's the story of what happened that season. And I'm sorry, a 6 or a 7 seed isn't the story of what happened in this basketball season.
So I'm just pulling up the stats here now for on-off for Jayson Tatum, just so we can give a little bit more context on this. And the reason I'm doing it on the fly is because I didn't know this is where we were going for 1. But 2, because I like cleaning the glass for on and off numbers. So I just look up Tatum off the lineup. Cleaning the glass, I have 2 ways of doing this. You can either click the on-off button, or you can just do with him in the lineup, without him in the lineup. I like the second one because it's just easier to get a better read. So the Celtics have played 1,859 possessions with Tatum in the lineup this season. They're plus 12.2. So what that means is they're outscoring opponents by 12.2 points per 100 possessions. The reason you use per 100 is because that's the average amount of possessions in an NBA game. So with Tatum on the floor, if he didn't rest at all for that game, the Celtics would statistically win by a margin of 12 points. With him off the floor, they're plus 7.4, but they've only played 719 possessions. So they're still a winning team, but the margin that they're winning drops by almost 50%. And that should show you the level of impact that we're talking about here. Is the Celtics are almost twice as good with Tatum on the floor as without him on the floor. And we could do this for every player in the league. We could do this for the top 5 in this straw poll voting. And I'm very confident that Tatum wouldn't be 4. He'd probably be a bit higher. Now, obviously, this is when we're talking on off numbers, that's where your team kind of comes into the situation as well. I do think that it's hard for Tatum to win MVP, especially right now with the amount of talent that's in the league and the talent that's around him. We've obviously got a bit of a bias. We cover the Celtics. We're both Celtics fans. We watch more Celtics basketball than any other team. Same way Thunder fans will think that Shai should be second in voting because they watch more Shai than anybody else. I just think Tatum gives you more defense than what Shai does. I think he gives you very similar offensive output, but in a different way, more of a complete way. The offense runs through Shai, whereas Tatum, it orchestrates an offense to run through everybody. I think Giannis, to me, is the one that really grinds my gears here. If you'd put Tatum at 3 and Giannis at 4, I think I'd be okay with that straw poll, to be quite honest with you right now, knowing that it's achievable for Tatum to move up 2 spots. I just don't see how Milwaukee can be this absolute atrocity of a team to begin the season. The Giannis-Dame partnership hasn't really worked to begin the year, but because they go on an NBA Cup run and then win the NBA Cup, all of a sudden Giannis is back in that MVP running. And he had a couple of good games. For me, that's the one that really grinds my gears. I'm okay if you want to put Shai at 2. I'm okay if you want to put Jokic at 1. Where's your issue with this? Do you think Tatum should be 1? Should he be 2? Where are you at?
It's so early in the season. We're not going to play the record game. And eventually it is going to come down to the standings. And if Jokic is under 50 wins and they're a 6 or 7 seed, that's just historically not what we vote an MVP. I know Westbrook has kind of altered that in recent history, but historically we've done this for over 75 years. It's a winning team. It's a team that would have home court in the first round. It's a team that has a chance to win the championship. Their player, best team. So Jokic, the stats are amazing. We can keep him 1 for now. I have a two spot being a tie with Shea and Tatum, because they're both on winning teams. They both do have a lot of help. Like, let's not act like SGA is playing with nobody here, but I give the 8 edge to Tatum because he has the bigger moments. He went head to head with Giannis and beat him in a fashion that was honestly embarrassing for Giannis. We've swept them this season. So for Giannis to be ahead of Tatum is just such a slap in the face, and it's such recency bias. And it's not even that recent because, what was it, December 2nd?
Yeah.
Tatum just mopped the floor with them. It's really annoying, but it just shows how underrated Tatum is around the league and with these voters, unfortunately, and it's sad.
The other aspect for me as well is it's very offensively based in terms of points scored. I think that these voters don't look at the bigger picture in terms of, to me, Tatum last season, and I've said this till I'm blue in the face at this point, was the most complete player in the NBA last season. You could argue LeBron if you want to, but maybe you want to put Jokic there, okay. But for me, it was Tatum because he was defending at an all-NBA level. He was playmaking at an all-NBA level. He was rebounding at an all-NBA level. He was scoring at an all-NBA level. He was screening at an all-NBA level. And his off-ball movement was fantastic. He knew when to mix up his screens. He was operating in the post. He was operating in the short roll. Everything you could want from a player, he was doing everything on both sides of the floor. And to begin this season, there's been a little bit of a mentality shift. He's a bit more scoring focused than what he was last season. He's not, but he's still creating, like, what is he, 6 assists a game at the minute on his averages around. So It's not like he's not orchestrating with that. He's just being a little bit more assertive with the scoring opportunities that present themselves. And for that, when you factor in the defense, predominantly as a help defender, as a rotating weak side help defender, or as somebody that's going to stunt and kill a drive, when you're looking at what Tatum does defensively, as well as everything he does on offense, not just scoring, he's just more of a complete player than what Giannis is. And I think that it's kind of bullshit to then put Giannis ahead of him based on, as you said, the Celtics have swept them. Tatum has outperformed Giannis in all of their matchups this season, and Milwaukee struggled for such a big part. We're only 27 games into the season now, and Milwaukee only really figured it out 10 games ago. So there was a 17-game stretch where they looked screwed. So to put Giannis at third, to me, it's just disingenuous, and it's a slap in the face to Tatum.
The Bucks still have a losing record against teams above 500. That alone should eliminate you from MVP candidacy, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're meant to beat the best teams. If you're the most valuable player in the league, it shouldn't matter who you're playing. And again, I understand it comes down to health. Chris Middleton's been hurt, but Chris Middleton's always hurt at this point. No, honestly, I wouldn't even have been shocked if Luka was at 6 or at 5. Like maybe you put Doncic above Luka because Dallas are playing well. Doncic is playing well. Yeah, to me, Tatum's been disrespected here and very peeved. I might not look at it because, I'm not going to cry about it, but yeah, but my man's being disrespected left, right, and center.
Well, the two things, they don't factor in defense on MVP. They never have. We can yell at the clouds all day. They just don't care. And there is a Celtics tax because how many fourth quarters has Tatum sat? Because the game was already out of hand. He doesn't get to pad his stats. He doesn't get to do all the things Jokic and Giannis get to do because let's face it, their teams are in tighter games and they just don't get that luxury. That's why I hate the statistical argument for MVP because Tatum could stat chase if he played most fourth quarters, but we have a bigger goal at hand and that should be factored in more.
For one, that's a point I didn't think of. So you win this argument with that argument straight away. For two, what I will say as well is building on that Celtics tax, you're kind of looked at differently when you're chasing an MVP as a champion because everybody's like, well, you're on the strongest team. So for you to stand out, you need to really dominate. You need to be 35 points a game. But that only occurs, that conversation only happens when you're wearing a green jersey. Because when Jokic won a championship, nobody cared what he was averaging. They just cared that his name was Jokic. When Giannis won a championship, nobody cared what he was averaging. They just cared his name was Giannis. Tatum wins a championship. Now, if you want to be MVP, you got to average close to 40. Forget everything else that you do well. You have to average close to 40. And we're seeing it now. I mean, ESPN, especially Bontemps, as you alluded to at the beginning of this episode, are generally anti-Jayson Tatum, right? Anti-Boston. The Celtics are the only team I can remember winning a championship and being questioned for their ability to win a championship. It's just fucking wild. So for Tatum to be fourth, that's actually a win when it's coming from ESPN, but it's still ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
I couldn't agree more. It's that typical anti-Boston, anti-Tatum crap. And there's a reason why most MVPs win MVP before they win a championship, because once you win the championship, that bar those goalposts get moved. You have to do more. It's really annoying. It's unfair. But you know what? Tatum's 26. He's going to get his MVP. It might not be this year. He might have to be a Hakeem Olajuwon where he gets it at age 31. I don't think it's going to take that long, but he is going to get his MVP. He is going to get his recognition. He's going to go down as a top 30 player ever.
I'm just going to put it out there as well, and I'm going to end with this. We're not at the point yet where Wemby is being overhyped. He's only got one total vote, and that's for 5th place. So when Wemby begins his ascension, then things might be a little bit more tough for Tatum if Jokic is still at the top of his game, if Giannis is still at the top of his game, and so forth and so on. I want to end it here. This is how I think could be a good way of ending it. Give me your top 5 in order for MVP voting as of right now.
I'm going to go Jokic because we're not going to factor in record till the end of the season. I think that's a fair thing to do. If they win over 50 games, he has my vote. Fine. He has the stats. He needs the wins. He has time to get them. I don't think he will, but whatever. 2, I'll give the edge to SGA right now, just because the Celtics have been off the last couple weeks. We have our light part of the schedule. Now, January, it gets tough. That's where Tatum's going to make his real push in this race.
Yeah.
But he doesn't need to push far because he's third. To have Giannis in front of him is still so insulting. I get frustrated. 4, I will put Giannis because they did turn around the season. He had a nice run in the cup. I don't know how much the cup should count for MVP, but that's a discussion for another day. And 5, I got to put Cat. What he's doing on both ends of the floor is really impressive. And look at Minnesota without him. Look how much they've fallen apart without him. Like, he was more the MVP of that team than Ant. And we're seeing it right now. 6, I'll give Luka.
So I'm gonna agree with you. Top three: Jokic one, Shy two, Tatum three. I'm gonna probably move Luca up to four, and then because I just think Luca. I'm not a huge Luca guy. I think his defense is trash. I think that it's very hard to win with a heliocentric player like Luca. And if you look at Luca, to me is a similar guy type of player to James Harden, and everything revolves around him. It's very hard to build a coherent team that can win a championship around that. So, but I'm going to put him at four because I think I've enjoyed watching him this season. I think he's been really good. I like your choice of Cat, and that's kind of swayed me a little bit. So, because I was going to put Giannis at five, but I'm going to go with you. I'm going to put Cat at five. I think you've swayed me there, and I've enjoyed watching the Knicks this year. So I've done a podcast earlier this week where I put the Knicks as Boston's biggest threat because of OG and Mikal Bridges and their ability to guard the wing, and Tatum and Brown not seeing a defensive wing duo like that in the playoffs yet. So yeah, I'm going to go with that top five. With that, I'm going to tell everybody, make sure you go follow Billy C over on socials. Billy, where can they find you?
SIBO41 on X, Billy Calabrese on Facebook. You'll see me on all the Celtics pages. Bleed Green, the OGs, that's our favorite. You Can't Handle the Truth. We have a bunch of them. Find us, talk to us, tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like. Hey, maybe we'll even shout you out on the pod.
And make sure you're following the Celtics Chronicle newsletter. Links in the description as always. Everybody, peace.